This format's going to be a little different because I've done a lot of debates, and one of the things that drives me crazy is when people say, well, that's not a 30-second answer. So we're going to do it a little differently. Each candidate is going to get 20 minutes in total. And they can use that 20 minutes any way they'd like. Everybody will be allotted 1 minute for an opening, 30 seconds for the closing statement, and each candidate will be allowed to ask one question of each of the other candidates. I will do that at the end of the time. So the 20 minutes will be timed. Each person has a separate phone, a separate timer. It'll be running time. It'll be your speaking, not my asking the question. So hopefully you can do this in about 65, 70 minutes. Again, I'm going to try to get to as many of these questions as I can. Some of them cover the same ground, but there's a couple of elephants in the room that we have to hit on. And any time you have left over on your 20 minutes, you can use in your closing statement. So feel free to conserve that time and use it however you'd like. So with that, I will ask the current mayor, Michael Passero, for his opening statement.
Gordon, can we hold up 1 second because our live stream?
I can. One moment, live streaming.
I thought you were starting at 7. All right, we're live. Thank you.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Does this count towards my 20 minutes?
This is not. This is not. This is a free 1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm looking forward to the discussion. It's been a great honor to serve as your mayor for this city that I love. The opportunity to work with all of you to move our city forward has been incredibly fulfilling for me. 4 years ago, I promised to put together, you can hear me okay, right?
Pretty good.
Okay, thanks. 4 years ago, I promised to put together a winning team. I could not be prouder of their effort and what's been accomplished to date. We have worked hard to build a sustainable and thriving economy that equitably benefits all segments of our wonderfully diverse city. It's a work in progress. I want to keep this winning team together. So tonight, I welcome the opportunity to highlight the amazing progress we have made toward achieving the vision of a successful city. I hope to gain your support to allow me to continue to work for you and to keep the momentum going into the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Rita?
Hello, everybody. Good evening. I want to also thank you all for coming tonight, and thank the Neighborhood Alliance and the Senior Center for hosting. It's nice to see so many people here. We're in the home stretch of our election season, but there's still plenty of time to learn about the three of us, learn about the Board of Ed and City Council candidates, to come to us with your questions, and to turn out your friends and neighbors. I think if you left here right now, you could still register your friends and neighbors to vote tonight, or do it same day, next Tuesday. I mention this because voter turnout in our last municipal election was really low. It was 23%. And I entered this race hoping to change that, to encourage and catalyze greater participation by committing to making city government both more relevant and more accessible. And our campaign for mayor has identified a mixture of practical and concrete changes and high aspirations. And that I'll be excited to talk about tonight. And the last thing I want to say is that when I started, I was running to make a point, right? And running to build the Green Party, and now I'm running to win. So I hope you all keep that in mind and fill in bubble 1E.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Marty Olson, running for mayor, and it's certainly been a privilege to serve for 5 terms on the London City Council, 10 years. And I love our community, and I've spent virtually my entire life here, and we've got a great place. And let's all work together to move it forward. Now this evening, I'm hoping that we can touch on a few topics that have not been hit on in the prior two debates, such as Green Harbor Beach and the abundant cost overruns, and the fact that the project really hasn't succeeded in its stated objectives. We have a Department of Labor report that was in the New London Day paper a couple of weeks ago, indicating that New London is floundering in terms of economic growth, not only in the region, but in the state. And we have also not touched on the new New London High School, which hasn't broken ground yet. And I think we need to tackle these. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to the 20-minute section, so I am not going to care one bit how long you take, but I'm going to track it, and I will remind you of the time you have left along the way. Okay? So I'd like to start with Mayor Passero. And frankly, I'm surprised you haven't spoken about your achievements as much as I think there's a lot of good things going on in town, and I'd just like you to talk about those for a minute, or as long as you'd like.
Well, it's amazing. When I went back, I published a little booklet, if some of you remember, 4 years ago when I was running. It had my platform and all my positions in it, from finances to economic development to human services, quality of life issues. And I thumbed through that. I don't want to feel like I'm bragging, but if you could have asked me how much progress we made towards achieving those goals at the beginning of the 4 years as opposed to now, I wouldn't have believed that we could have done as much as we did. So if you take the finances, we've gone from a $2 million fund balance that's teetering on the edge of missing a payroll to close to a $14 million fund balance. That's how healthy this city is now. We have $750 million worth of development in the pipeline. Building permits have nearly doubled from like 35 million, from 19 million to almost over 35 million. I could go on and on and on with these statistics. Creating the positions of Human Services Director, which we sorely needed, and it hit right at the time when we had to deal with this opioid crisis, the crisis in our sober homes. You hear less about that because of our success. We've decreased the number of emergency transports. And Gordon asked me this question because he wanted to sucker me into using a lot of my 20 minutes in the first few minutes of the debate. So I'm not going to go on and on and on. Throughout this debate, I'll be highlighting some of these issues of the success that we've made. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And we only have one mic up there, so I'm going to ask you to share it with Frida. And Frida, you're kind of new to the game, so I'd like you to talk a little bit about your background and what you see as your biggest goal and most attainable goals.
Great. So I moved to New London in 2010, bought a house in 2012, and set about raising my family in this community. I live on Connecticut Avenue, right over the hill. There's a very well-kept yard right on the corner. That's not mine. And mine is right in one from the very beautiful porch. So you'll know it by the massive Frida sign and the bordering on blight weeds in front. No, but we're doing kind of a no-mow lawn, which I know is very popular in this community and never gets anybody in trouble. So anyway, that has nothing to do with my accomplishments or my going forward. But I really fell in love with New London, coming to make my home here, see this as a place to raise my children and to have a life. I work for Fresh New London, so I do grassroots urban development, community development, grow vegetables, and leadership within our community and within our young people. So I bring really a community organizer's ethos and eyes to city government, which could be cast as a lack of leadership or business experience, or I don't have a string of letters after my name, but I do have a commitment to our community and an ethos of kind of looking from the grassroots up, which I think informs everything. So the example I thought about kind of coming into this was just what would it look like, just to give one example of a kind of controversial thing that hit New London not too long ago, which was pay as you throw, which I know the Neighborhood Alliance really organized around and was very effective around. And I thought, well, how would I have done things differently? And I think from a business perspective or from a law perspective, you might think, well, like the numbers look good on that, and that seems like a good idea. The balance sheet is right, and the presentation was good, and so we're just going to go with that, right? And a community organizer, a consensus builder, a grassroots activist looks at that and thinks, who benefits from that situation and who loses in that situation, and then goes and actually talks to community members and a cross-section of community members about an issue like that, and then learns and listens and kind of takes all of that in. I'm using a lot of time on this because I think, well, because we have 20 minutes. Like, it feels like
You
ages.
used to.
So I'll wrap up just by saying that at the very least, a community organizer as mayor would not be surprised by the level of agito that pay as you throw catalyzed within our community, because there would have been a lot more listening and a lot more consensus building around something as critical as what happens to our garbage when we throw it away, because we can't just forget about it. We pay for it no matter what we do. And so I'll leave it at that, but except I'll just sort of underline it all by saying those are sort of the skills of consensus building, of listening, are the skills that I bring to this job and have brought to this race. So thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Olson, I would like to know, you've been involved for quite a bit of time. I'd like you to go through some of your achievements and what you see as the biggest policy changes that you would implement.
Excuse me, before addressing your question, I'd just like to chat a little bit about the fund balance. Folks, as noted, the $12 million fund balance is not free. Over the course of the 4 years that the mayor's been in office, that translates into an additional $3 million per year added to the budget. And if you think about it, we're paying for a number of things via debt, which is bonds, such as the Green Harbor Beach cost overruns, garbage trucks, our sidewalks and curb program, which ironically this year we haven't gotten off the ground when we could have been using tax dollars. Now, of current achievements that I'm proud of this term, leading the charge from a minority position to slow down and ultimately kill the pay-as-you-throw garbage program with the assistance of Councilor Tranquita. The two of us managed to slow it down enough to give you, the public, an opportunity to weigh in. And man, did you weigh in. And it was, we don't want this, in a big, big way. Enough so that the 5 votes that the mayor had in his pocket, they got nervous and they backed off. And we had the same type of a situation, which I'm very proud of, with the consolidation of city services down in Shaw's Cove. Again, myself, with the assistance of Councilor Sadie at that time, were able to slow it down to again give the public an opportunity to weigh in. And again, they stated very clearly and succinctly, don't do this. It's an abandoning of downtown. Now, on a more, somebody say, positive note, I'm ecstatic to have been the leader in the Atchison Drive new water line project, which was initiated with a call to me. It was brought to the Neighborhood Alliance. And I was able to take that project from ground zero, where they had brown water on that street, to completion just recently. And the neighbors on that street are absolutely delighted. And I shepherded that through the council, the water authority, and I visit job sites when we have projects going on. I think that's important to actually know what's going on. And if one want to go to a throwback issue that I felt very strongly about, when I ran back in 87. Captain's Walk removal was high on my agenda, and we accomplished that. Thank you.
Thank you. And you hang on to the mic. So let's get into what seems to be your major issue, and it seems to be public work issues.
Public works is certainly very big, but I think in order to get our community moving forward in a very positive way, I'd like to see our community become a destination. And in order to accomplish that, we've got to do a number of things. We have to provide a clean and safe environment. And let's be honest, whether we like it or not, London's reputation can be a little sketchy at times. And if we want people to come into our community, they've got to feel they're coming into an environment that's very, very safe. We've got the assets to build on. We've got a terrific waterfront. We've got colleges. We've got historical sites. We've got things to build with. And we're not taking advantage of them. That takes leadership. It takes somebody to pull disparate groups together that may not work very well together. Our historical sites are kind of an example, kind of being little fiefdoms. And we've got to pull it together. Standard operating days and times so people can actually book a day trip into London. And we need to enhance significantly the amount of downtown activities in the waterfront. And I would like to introduce at this time the opportunity for us to create a tourism director and event coordinator working directly for the mayor. I think that that's something that needs to be done immediately. We cannot wait. We have to get proactive and get things moving. The stagnancy is killing us. And that in turn will create some critical mass. It will help to fill some of our empty storefronts. And it becomes to build on itself. And I'm also committed to seeing a walking beat and or bicycle beat with the police in the downtown area. I think that's critical. People have got to know, and they've got to see that police presence, which they don't have at the moment. Thank you.
I didn't get to finish my question. So my question actually was, you are the chairman of Public Works.
Yes.
And we have had a lot of problems in the last couple of years, and which has been highlighted by the damage done to Harbor Towers and condos behind Harbor Towers in the last two rains. Can you explain what's being done about that and how that hasn't been addressed to date?
And I am the chair of the Public Works Committee, and quite frankly, we have not done a very good job administratively as a city, and we need to step it up short-term and long-term. And it's beyond just Bank Street. We've got problems with flooding on Broad Street in the Connecticut Avenue area that goes down to the Electric Street area, Garfield Avenue, and other places throughout the community. So, I mean, this is not just singular in nature. It's going to take exceptionally bright people to come in and offer solutions, and we also have to come up with a payment. And that's a critical component, to make the commitment to do the project, do it right, and pay for it. Now, while we're doing that, that doesn't solve the problem when it rains this weekend. And I think that we have to, our administration's got a responsibility to look at this stuff, and I don't necessarily think that they have, whether it's getting the National Guard involved, whether it's sandbags, whatever it takes to make things more palatable for the people who are living in these immediate areas and the businesses that are servicing those areas. And as one councilor on the city council, I mean, I have a certain level of ability to get things done. The ultimate charge goes to the mayor, which is why I'm running for the office. I think I can do the best job.
Thank you. And if you would pass it to Mayor Passero. Mayor Passero, can you tell us what we have in place and how we're working towards a solution? Because this isn't sustainable for the residents in those areas.
That's exactly correct. And that's why we have spent the last 4 years setting up a structure and planning to tackle these flooding issues that have really, there's nothing new. Bank Street and Blooming Street didn't start flooding 4 years ago. They've been flooding for years, and the problem's been ignored. Pequot Avenue at Green Harbors Beach did not start flooding 4 years ago. It's been flooding for my whole life. Truman's Brook has been there since the beginning of the city. The city's been developed around it, and the flooding has occurred. So the first thing, and I've fought for this for 8 years, it takes a long time sometimes to build a structure to solve these problems. It's not just empty political rhetoric every 2 years. We have a stormwater utility, ladies and gentlemen. That was a heavy lift. It took a long time to build that community consensus and to get that structure set up. And that is, we have stormwater management issues that we have to fund. Why should we fund those on the 60% of us that pay property taxes? The stormwater utility is set up the same as your water and your sewer utility. Everybody that creates the stormwater problem has to pay to help mitigate the stormwater problem, and also has to pay for the state permit now. So we have a separate utility that's a separate fund that pays for these issues. It has an operating budget and a capital fund, and we can now solve these problems. We have a short-term goal and long-term goals for Howard and Blenman. Despite what you're going to hear tonight, we have solved Pequot Avenue. It was solved with a major hemorrhage in that budget. But we plowed ahead and we tackled the problem that's been in the planning stages since 2004, ladies and gentlemen. And we have that problem solved. And here's the better part. Even with that massive cost overrun, there's never been a claim that a penny was wasted. It was all put to good use. It cost that much to solve that problem. Should we have known about it? Yes. And we'll find out where the engineering failed. But the thing is, we solved the problem. Now for all the generations to come after us. That's what's important. We will show that same leadership when we move to Howard and Blenman, and when we move to Connecticut and Broad Street and Ledyard Street and that area. Those problems will be solved, and now there's a structure in place to do that.
Is there also a structure to prevent that type of overrun again? Because the allegations from Councilman Olson have been harsh. Was there a breakdown there, and how did we fix that so that it doesn't happen again?
You know, the best way I can describe that is the cost of the project is the cost of the project. Our failure was to keep the council informed as we ran into those problems and the budget started to hemorrhage. But it was all happening in real time, ladies and gentlemen. It was all happening during the course of a few weeks in the middle of the summer. When they run into ledge that's under there's 4 forced sewer mains under Pequot Avenue. And that was probably the reason that nobody tackled this project in the past. Working around the 4 sewer mains and not creating a major, major environmental disaster if one of them was breached, which would have made the overrun we had look like peanuts, trying to clean up that environmental disaster. That was the problem bidding the project. No contractor wanted to take that risk on. We took the risk on. So I think what it is the project would have cost what the project cost, and we will find out why we weren't made aware of that by the engineering. And as far as the problem with communicating with the council, I will take that responsibility for that, because that was my responsibility.
Thank you. Frida, I'd like to hear your, you kind of have new eyes on all of this. Maybe you have some comments regarding how this was handled and how there seemed to be a lack of transparency. And also, it's not just a money issue. This is a real ecological issue when you're dealing with that much runoff.
Yep. How much time do I have?
16 minutes and 7 seconds.
Okay, great. I won't use it all on the answer to this question. But I think this conversation comes back to the conversation about rising water and climate change that we were having at the landmarks debate 2 weeks ago. And short of, the emergency situations which are critical, I live, all of my neighbors' basements flood from that Connecticut Avenue Broad Street problem there. People all along Elm Street, which is also not mentioned, suffer from rainwater flooding as well. I think we need to change not just how we respond in the immediate, but how we design and how we build and how we park our cars. Because the real culprit here is asphalt, right? And while all of these, we've always lived you know, in a beautiful place by the sea, we haven't always covered all of those places with parking lots. And so when you look at drainage issues around my neighborhood, you know, we look at the 3 or 4 gas stations that are right around the Ledyard, Connecticut Avenue kind of nexus, and the big parking lot at what was Rite Aid and now is Family Dollar. And the fact that there's a body of water behind that Family Dollar. And so all of that runoff goes into that waterway and then goes into my neighbor Bernard's basement, right? And so what Public Works doesn't have right now is an engineer who is trained in thinking about stormwater and flood mitigation. So just whenever Public Works does anything, it has water implications. It has flooding possibility, dimensions to it. And so I think we need to look at all of that. And at the risk of using too much of my, nope, I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to conserve my
Well
time.
played. Councilor Olson.
Yes, thank you. Regarding the Green Harbor Beach, I'm not sure if the mayor has taken the time to visit because perhaps some of you would recall we had some pretty heavy rain after our last debate at the library that was sponsored by the London Landmarks, and the road was flooded, the beach was flooded, and we had exceptional amount of drainage problems coming from above the park, and a lot of debris, and it was a mess. And we have some serious problems in that park with erosion and drainage, and it's coming from an area with the Amtrak and the rail. That area is not secure. There are picnic tables within a stone's throw of the railroad tracks. There's no fence. This is dangerous, folks. You're going to call this complete? I don't. Dangerous. Very attractive nuisance for children to get up on those tracks. Not good. This shouldn't be open right now. And it's also like a riverway. It was a torrent this past Sunday and a much lighter rain when I visited. Coming down through with the tracks down into, it was like a spillway. And the entire park is rutted and eroded. There's exposed mesh. It's not holding. This is not done. Don't kid yourself. We're looking at additional expenses. And I also would like to point out the mayor, his finance director, in his report on this project, stated that he's proposing that we take half of the stormwater budget, $750,000, and apply it to this project. What the hell's going on here? That's not right. Thank you.
Thank you. You can hang on to the mic. So I've done a little over 8,000 closings in my real estate career. And I've had an opportunity to, I'm not exaggerating, I've asked thousands of people, why not New London? And it always comes down to 2 things, taxes and schools. We've had a disaster in the school, which we don't know the size of it quite yet. And we have a tax burden on residents that's heavy, but I am not upset with this last year, I can tell you that. So I'd like to know, regarding those 2 issues, what would your strategy be?
For starters, the strength of our community will be our educational system, because if it's failing, we fail. We certainly are not going to attract young families into our community with a failing school district. So it needs to be supported. And I'm proud to say this past budget cycle that I made a motion to increase the school budget $400,000, which translated into about a $250,000 increase. I couldn't get a second. Think about that. Now I'm the Republican. He's a Democrat, and I have 6 Democrats I'm serving with on the council, and they stiffed education. I think that's wrong. I support education. And we're trying to build this magnet school district, and our neighbors are watching us. And they've got choices. They don't have to come here. And the carrot to buy into this program is money from the state. And if we don't meet targets, we don't get the dough. and then we're left holding the bag. This is serious business. And on top of all that, we've got the school building problem. The new London High School was supposed to have been completed a year ago, and we haven't broken ground on it. How about that? Every month we're spending 27 grand for CREC. You're a construction manager. We're not going anywhere. We're on a treadmill. Projected completion date now is 2024, 5 years out. We bonded back, or approved bonding, in 2014, so we're looking at like 9 years to build the school. That's unacceptable to me. I don't know about you guys. I think that's bad business. And one of the reasons for going to the mayor form of government is to hold somebody accountable for what's going on. I think that speaks volumes. And as far as the schools, we've got to support our schools, and we've got a problem with academic performance, and that's not good. And we've also got these other issues that have been certainly highlighted in the media, and we have to stand up and be counted and be honest with the public what's going on. And I think that's one of the problems we're looking at the moment, is that we don't know what's going on. And we've got two different tacks going on. You've got the police dealing with criminal issues, and you've got the educators dealing with policy issues. And I also think that the mayor has got to work hand in hand with the superintendent of schools. We can't be having the mayor undercutting the superintendent, going behind their back, her back in this case. Going to the state without her knowledge, I thought was bad business. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, just so you know, you're down to 8 minutes and 55 seconds, but I would like to follow that up with you. The question, it sounds like you just described, it's your position that throwing more money at the school and building new schools fixes the problem. I just want to make sure that's not what you're saying.
What I'm saying is the community in 2014 committed to building new schools. The community did via a referendum, overwhelmingly. Let's make sure we're correct on that. And if we're going to do that, we've got to make a commitment to succeed.
But do you think that will turn the schools around? I mean, you just said you were the only one who voted for $400,000 extra.
Well, I didn't get a chance to vote on it. I only made the motion.
Well, you made the motion.
Yes, and I do think that, again, if we're going to be, and this is a regional program, whether we like it or we don't. If we're going to get the regional support we need to make this work, we've got to show our regional partners that we're serious, and part of that is appropriate funding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the same question, so it's taxes and schools are the reasons people don't move here, and it's the reason that our house sales are down, and we're on a slope like this, where other towns are like this right now. And it wasn't that way a year ago. So it's schools and taxes are the most frequent reasons I get. How would you address both of those issues?
Well, I guess I don't want to be glib at all here, but I moved here for taxes and schools. My children are very happy at Nathan Hale School, and we were able to buy a house here in New London for $80,000. Due to all of the now I'm told it's worth $160,000. I don't think it is, but I'm also told that our mill rate has gone down, and but our taxes have effectively increased. But I think New London continues to have a lot to offer to young families, to families starting out. And as mayor, I would really tell my own story of not really ever thinking of myself as somebody who could buy a home, and coming here and being able to do that, and being supported by the city in doing that. There was down payment assistance, and there was incentives for us to buy a house here. The house we bought had before been sold for $240,000, so it was all caught up in this speculative bubble. And then I think a Navy family, just had to walk away from it at a certain point. It was empty for the better part of 3 years and not livable because it needed a new roof. It had a hot tub, but it didn't have a roof. So there's a lesson there for municipal government somewhere. I'll leave you to kind of sort it out. I only have 16 minutes to answer this question. So we were able to get a CFHA loan, replace the roof, and move our family in 2 weeks before my son Seamus, who's now 7, was born. And then, I was able to walk this community and feel almost instantly at home here. And in a community that has such a low rate of home ownership, we have the lowest in the state. 34% of us, 35% of us own our own homes. I see that as an opportunity to get current New London residents who are paying $1,300 a month in rent into homes as homeowners where they can pay $900,000 for everything: taxes, insurance, and healthy payments on their mortgages, and achieve home ownership. And that's something I've been working on, for a number of years here in New London through the Community Land Trust. We're just trying to sell our first home over on Press Street right now. And so I think in order to talk about taxes in schools, we need to start with the people who live here now, and encourage, incentivize, support deep investment in our schools, not just in terms of dollars, right? I think we need significantly more dollars for education. And I'm concerned that, education funding has essentially been kind of flat. And in fact, it's worse than that because in the last couple of years, 2 things have happened. One, the healthcare costs for people working in the schools have gone up 11% a year, which is, we can talk about this more tomorrow night, Medicare for All as an opportunity for New London to save significant money in healthcare costs. So healthcare costs have gone up for teachers and other staff within our schools. And the schools have also taken on the custodial duties, which used to be done by Public Works. And that that kind of manifests as a $500,000 cut to the school budget, right? And so I am for more spending on education, and under Mayor Frida, as I'm hoping you all call me, we will increase funding for education. But it's not just about dollars, right? It's also about parents feeling welcome in the school, parents feeling connected to the schools, the curriculum and the teachers reflecting and kind of embodying what we want our young people to be. And then, I guess the last thing I'll say, kind of connecting schools and taxes, is that there is such value in, being able to walk to school, right? And being able to walk your kids to school, something I'm actually not able to do right now because they go to Nathan Hale, it's 3 miles, and I really wanted to get them walking, but they're kind of like 1.5 miles tops. That's kind of what they'll do. So I think there's a lot that we can do to connect the New London community to their schools, short of increasing education funding significantly. Is that 16 minutes?
Thank you. You have 8 minutes and 31 seconds left. To Mayor Passero, the same question. I mean, I think the level of crisis is lost on some people here, and we have to get it straight. And I applaud your asking for the state investigation. There's a total of 4 investigations, as I understand it. But what role would you continue to take, or what additional role would you take to deal with securing that, and also the tax base? And obviously you have a record to talk about.
How might you?
You're at 14 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay.
So for everybody, 14:33 for Mike, and Councilman Olson has 8 minutes and 18 seconds.
Okay. Well, I did exactly what any mayor would do. When this crisis broke, I immediately reached out to the Office of Child Advocate. That's what the Office of Child Advocate is there. I certainly was not undercutting our superintendent in any way. I was doing what a mayor would do in his responsibilities overseeing the city. The superintendent does not answer to me. The Board of Ed does not answer to me. They answer to the State Department of Education. Everybody has to understand that. We have different roles. That's a department I do not fully control, except when it comes to the budget time. So I'm comfortable. I'll be meeting with the State Child Advocate, I think, later this week. It's on the calendar coming up at any rate to be filled in on her independent investigation. And I think the whole community needs to know that. And it's not a reflection on our superintendent. I love Frida's explanation of her experience in New London, because that's more what I feel is the reality. You know, we have to get away from this poor as me. Gordon, I think my statistics are different than yours, because one of the statistics I came to brag about here is the fact that we are outperforming the state, both in employment, by the way, so don't listen to anything other than that, by a remarkable percentage, but also in housing sales. So I checked the data. So from September 18 to September 19, housing sales went up less than 2% in the state, went up about 4.3% in New London County, and in New London, they went up 10%.
That is true, but it's like a 6-month cycle here. We're trending down.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm gonna go with these things because they more reflect my feeling how the community is going right now. It's taxes we did. It was a historic mill rate drop of about 3.8% or 3.8 mils. So that would be down 8.5%. The taxes went down. But here's the thing: a healthy city, a healthy housing market means your property values are going to go up. So unfortunately, we don't see the whole benefit of the tax drop because our property values went up in many cases. Not for everybody. Some people experienced it and some people didn't. And by the way, we just had national press because we're 7th on the list nationwide of, for those who can afford it, we're 7th on the list of the most affordable waterfront properties in the nation. So we do have a community that has different economic diversities. To Frida's point, this administration has worked very, very hard on home ownership issues, and I welcome the Community Land Trust. I think it's one of the greatest new partners we have, but we have just recently got a grant from the state to fund ECHO. ECHO will be redoing 20 more units for affordable house, income restricted home ownership opportunities. And that's important. That's 20 units, and it's going to be in the historic Hempstead Street District. We're constantly working with partners like Eversource and tax credits to fund HOPE and ECHO and Habitat. And it's very important to my administration that we provide housing opportunities and housing and home ownership opportunities across the broad spectrum of our economically diverse community. It's really important. And let me touch on the fund balance issue first of all. The fund balance issue is not as simple as it's been described. Fund balance is important for our credit rating, our bond rating. Our bond rating affects our ability to bond. We are bonding over $150 million to build the new high school and the new middle school. If I can get that bond rating up, we will save millions and millions of dollars over decades to come in our borrowing costs, our debt service on the operating budget. So this is important. And we were almost there this past fall when the rating agencies looked at us. They'll be looking at us again next spring. And I am very excited. If we can keep the momentum going like this, we will get our bond rating up. And that will be, because it got knocked down a few years ago when really we suffered deficits in the $2 million range. And then the following year, there were deficits the deficit was $4.5 million. That was around 2011, 2012 fiscal years. That was devastating to the city. We're just recovering from that now. It's very important. On the high school timeline, I got to tell you something. A lot of the history, you've got to remember the history on the building of this high school. It's been a fight. If it was easy, anybody could do it. but state school construction project is very complicated. And in New London, we had to make it as complicated as possible because we had to throw in building a magnet school system on top of it. The only date that's important on the saga of building our high school is it was July 2018 when the school district finally came to an agreement with the State Department of Education on programming. You cannot design a high school. The city could not build a high school until the school district and the State Department of Education agreed on an education plan. That did not happen until 1 year ago, about a year and a half ago now, July 2018. And since then, we've been in overdrive. This is the timeline of the high school. Significant dates. It's 3 pages long. It's not a simple story of we voted for it in 2014 and it's still not built. It's been a fight to keep that school on track, and we're going to deliver a school for our children. I didn't think I'd ever have to promise or apologize for a successful public works project. But I invite all of you to simply go down to Green Harbor Beach, and we'll be touring on Friday, except that we're going to have another torrential rain. But we will be touring Green Harbor Beach on Friday with the Commissioner of the Department of Housing, who contributed a lot of money towards this project, and we're asking her for more. But we're going to be touring the project with her. The park is beautiful. Go see it. I shouldn't have to apologize for delivering a successful public works project.
All right, why don't you hang on to that? So this is kind of a quicker one, hopefully for everybody. Moving into, if you're elected, will you look to open the charter so to change the residency requirement, or will you be replacing some of the current directors who aren't residents?
First of all, I've been very clear about this since I took office. There's a conflict in the charter.
Absolutely.
It's an absolute conflict. I could not have delivered the success that we've delivered in the last 4 years if I was saddled with that requirement. And guess what? Every officer of this city, whether it was the previous mayor or whether it was the city managers that went on all the way back, as far as I can remember, did not honor that provision in the charter. The only difference with me was I've been honest about it. And I've said I am going to hire the best. And when they're from New London, I do. And Felix Reyes is the greatest example. This is a whaler, born and bred and educated here. He went out, he made his career in architecture, went to Wentworth. He's now serving as our development director. Guess what? In the interim, he settled in Trumbull. His wife is a graduate of Conn College. She's teaching in Bridgeport. His little girls are going to school in Trumbull. He cannot uproot his family right now. Was I going to pass up that talent? Of course not. I couldn't. And I would be violating my other charges under the charter to make this city successful. So, you can just simplistically say, I will honor every element of the charter. You can't. There's a conflict. And you'll be standing in the ruins of a city when something like that doesn't work. And there's very few other cities that have a requirement like that because, ladies and gentlemen, professionals do their job. It doesn't matter where they live. They're committed to their careers and they do their job. And every professional I hired does their job in this city and is making us successful. So, and by the way, charter revision is controlled by the city council. When I was on the city council, I voted and proposed and got the council to vote with me to set up a charter review board. That charter review board has been going through our charter meticulously for 4 years. They are just about complete. We're going to have a very detailed analysis of our charter. So when and if the city council establishes a charter revision commission, which I would welcome, that commission, which will then have a clock ticking under the statute, will have this detailed white paper analyzing our charter to work with, and we will do a good job at it. So I think that's what the most important thing is, to do a good job at it.
Thank you. Frida, would you encourage opening the charter so we can reconcile some of those conflicts?
I would start by finding homegrown talent to help lead our city. By my count, 3 department heads live in New London, and I think that sends, as we've talked about at other debates, I think that sends the wrong message to our young people, sends the wrong message to our community. Perhaps department heads are right here in this room, or future department heads are right here in this room. And I would look at that. I think that if there's a reason to have somebody serve the people of New London and live outside of our city, as many of our department heads currently do, I'd like to kind of take that up with all of you and kind of make that case with all of you in a proactive way. So that's how I would answer that question, and I'm having fun thinking about, along with my friends within the Green Party, about who would be good people to put into those department head slots. I'll also just say that, we pay our department heads quite competitive, high salaries, I've just been imagining that if they all ended up living in New London, our median income, would raise significantly, and it would up our home ownership rate probably too, because those folks wouldn't want to live maybe next door to me, although there's a house for sale right on my street. And I'm not a realtor, I'm just kind of putting that out there. I'd love to have any department head in town live on Connecticut Avenue. That would be great for me.
You know it and I know it.
Right.
They don't care about me, London.
Please.
So I think that we can find people amongst ourselves who can serve as department heads, and I think that if somebody wants to come and serve as a department head for the City of New London, we would all be well served by them living inside our community and participating in the full life of our community, not just kind of making their money here. Thanks.
Thank you.
My turn?
Counselor, please.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, just for the record, I want to let you know that back in March that I had initiated a proposal for charter revision. So a counselor actually has done that. And it was tucked into the administration committee chaired by Councilor Dominguez, where it still sits. So, Your Honor, the challenge was there, and it's been sat on. Shame on the council. As far as the department heads living in New London, quite frankly, the mayor is not supposed to be picking and choosing those positions in the charter that they're going to enforce. You enforce them. The charter is pretty clear on this. If you don't like the law, change it. That's the challenge, is to change it. Now also, because this mayor has also kind of shown a lack of respect for the charter regarding back to the beach, in regards to modifications of contracts. When it becomes necessary, in the opinion of the mayor, to make alterations or modifications, such as $3 million worth, for any public work or improvement, such as alterations or modifications, only authorized by council upon written recommendation of the mayor. That's a charter provision. Ignored. No such alteration shall be valid unless the price to be paid for the work or material or both shall have been agreed upon in writing and signed by the contractor and mayor prior to such authorization by the city council. And that was ignored. So this is not just a singular situation here regarding residency of department heads. I'd also just like to note regarding the mill rate dropping this year, let's remember that we had a reevaluation, which has skewed things. The reevaluation, property values go up. By definition, the mill rate drops. So taking credit for this drop in the mill rate due to reevaluation is disingenuous. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Frida, if you would take the mic. Job creation brings additional residents, which brings the tax rate up, or tax base up. What would you do to increase tourism?
What would I do to increase tourism? I would tell our story, right? We live in a historic place, and I would tell that story. And I wouldn't want people just to come and get on the ferry and, sail away, but really explore our whole community. Walk up the hill of New London. Come visit the Hempstead houses, the Hempstead neighborhood and the Hempstead houses. I actually like, not actually, why say it that way? I like Marty's idea about a tourism coordinator and kind of packaging all of our many assets together. I would demonstrate how our diversity is our strength, and really encourage people to get out of the immediate downtown and move upward. And the risk of opening up a whole new can of worms, well, why not? We have, 5 minutes left here?
Each have about 5 minutes.
Yeah. So just, I think citing, for example, citing the Coast Guard Museum over at Fort Trumbull would kind of be one of those moves into neighborhoods, so that the kind of tourist attractions of our community are not just kind of all right along the water, but well, I guess Fort Trumbull is along the water, but not all right in the immediate downtown, but spread out a little bit. Because the other thing I would do to increase tourism, oh no, no, never mind. I'll just say it now, because it's kind of like anti-tourism, which is also important, which is I would make Ocean Beach free to New London residents. Yeah. And I think that we would still recoup some money from Centerplate, the same amount of money from Centerplate that we do now, and we would sort of honor the fact that that is public property, that is our commons, by making it free to all residents of New London. And then to really think creatively about how people get to Ocean Beach, so that some of our, kind of nicest streets aren't, parking lots all summer long, would also be something I would work on. I'll also just note that contract with Centerplate is up, I think, in 2022, where we kind of gave away our development rights for one of our key assets, Ocean Beach. We didn't give it away. I'm being slightly facetious in the interest of time, but I would relook at that contract and think about New London taking responsibility for our beach once again, and developing that as a homegrown asset for putting it back to work in the service of New London. So those are some ideas about tourism, but I guess I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I want to serve the people of New London and have that be an attraction for people to come in, to see that the people who live here right now are happy and are well served and are connected to one another. Maybe it's perhaps our greatest asset. So.
Thank you. Mayor Passeron?
Second question.
Yeah, tourism. Then we're going to get to the big elephant in the room in a minute, but the tourism.
Well, first of all, you'll all recall that the state government essentially defunded its investment in tourism during the Malloy administration, and the money has been slow to come back. But fortunately, there is funding in the current budget. So the Regional Tourism Commission is back up and running, and New London has a strong presence on that. So my goal would be to get better use out of the state's investment in those tourism dollars. We do have a wonderfully historic city. We should be attracting more tourism. And I think the way to do that is basically the strategy we've been using, and one of the goals that I had when I took over was to improve our image. We've been working closely with Quinn and Harry. It's very important that the city's image is positive. I can say one of my disappointments in the previous administration was the headlines almost daily that seemed to be, it was not a positive image for the city. I'm happy that under the last 4 years we have raised our influence across the state. We've raised our image, and just surfing through the internet, you find a lot more positive hits on the city, stories written about the city. That's what attracts people here. It's sort of a long-term goal that you got to work towards improving your city, and also all the improvements that we're making. And by the way, one of the things that hurts us is something, I'm a pragmatist. It wasn't my choice where the Coast Guard Museum goes. It was the developer's choice. It was the association that's building that museum. The Coast Guard essentially chose that location. They did not choose Fort Trumbull. There's nothing I can do about that. It was before I was the mayor, and it's my responsibility to support that. They'll be breaking ground in September, and that's going forward, and that's going to be one of the biggest tourist draws that this city's going to have. So we got to stop fighting over the location. When that decision was made, it's probably been 6 years since the city sold the Coast Guard Association that plot of land to build that there. So we're in a partnership, and we should be all pulling together to make that a success.
Thank you. Councilman Olson, you touched on the need for tourism in your opening, so why don't you tell us some specifics?
Well, thank you. First of all, I mean, just listening to the mayor, I have to say that there's a lot of, the state this and the prior administration that, and a lot of finger pointing. And at what point are you going to take ownership of your 4 years in office? I think we all would like to know that. The Olson administration, the buck stops here, to quote Truman, a good Democrat. We have the opportunity, and I've outlined already in a very positive way, the assets to drive terrific tourism in our community. We've got historic sites, we've got the colleges and the Coast Guard, Fort Trumbull, Coast Guard Station London, Ocean Beach. We've got it all. People come to here and they just shake their head and say, wow, what a great place. We're very, very fortunate to be where we live. But it's time for us as a community to take the bull by the horns and break through. That dreaded word, potential. Well, in London, we've had 50 years of potential. It's time to bust through. And tourism is a good way to make that start. And as again outlined at the top, we need a clean, safe environment. We need activities on our waterfront. And we have to expand beyond the downtown area. Everybody in our community should be benefiting from what's going on in our community, not just the downtown merchants. Everybody. And our best asset is everybody sitting in this room. We've got a very diverse crowd here this evening. I'm tickled to see that. It goes against what Mike DeMora wrote in the day paper very recently. And I think that this is something that's important, that everybody is going to feel comfortable and want to invest and build in our community. And that will also help the tourism. I don't know if there's a place where you can buy a New London t-shirt right now. That's not good.
Thank you. All right, everybody, just want to give you your times. Marty, you have 4 minutes and 6 seconds. Frida, you have 2 minutes and 25 seconds. And Mayor Pastor has 2 minutes and 55 seconds. And I don't think that we're going to have more time than one more question. So I'm going to put it out there. Mayor Pastro's made great strides as far as his negotiations with the state pier in Orsted. I'm going to let you talk about where you see that going and how it's going to benefit New London.
My commitment has been, and it's been really months and months of battling, but my commitment has been that the taxpayers in this city will see the revenue from the state pier facility that they've been not denied for so many years, and that they deserve. And I believe that I am on the verge of delivering that. It hinges on whether the state and Orsted and Eversource can finalize their development agreement for the state pier. And God willing, if the harbor of New London becomes the hub for the build-out of the offshore wind industry, then the taxpayers in New London will enjoy that windfall.
Thank you. Clever play of words. Frida.
I want to reserve lots of time for my closing because I never give myself enough time for that. So 2 things on the wind thing. I want jobs for New London young people, jobs for New London residents, and I want to see that reserve come, or that revenue come in the form of a community center, a place where New London residents can gather, can learn, a place where kids can have after-school activities. Really, I'm describing the building that's kind of right over there, by which I mean the Martin Center, but renovated and made beautiful and effective for our young people. So those are my two big things, and I took too much time saying that. Those two short things. So.
Thank you. Councilman?
Thank you. Folks, I would argue that the mayor has not really been at the table regarding state pier. We were promised by the governor directly in our lobby of City Hall that our mayor would have a seat on the Connecticut Port Authority. That has not been delivered. This was after we had been smoked regarding the change of operators from Logistec to Gateway. And this pattern, from where I'm sitting, seems to continue. Also, negotiations have been operating in a vacuum. And as a city councilor and as a community, we're getting our information from the day. I think that's inherently wrong. David Collins should not be the source of information on such an important project for our community. And I think that we all would share that belief. Now, I think that we need to be having a diverse use of that pier. We also, we don't hear it talked about very much, but the tie-in with the Crystal Avenue high-rise property is in with this as well. And what's going to happen there? We're only going to get one shot on this, and we can't afford to blow it. Would be nice to know what the heck's going on. I think that's important. We all share in that. A while ago, the mayor was talking about that being a big driver of tax revenue. Now he's backed off and the state's become the prime player. Well, what is it? Is it us or is it the state? Is it us or is it the state? I'm not sure. Are you?
Thank you. All right, so I have 1,000 questions I want to ask, but there's no more time. So I'm going to close. I'm going to give you each your closing opportunity, and we're going to go in reverse order the way we started. So Marty, you'll close first, and you have 2 minutes and 54 seconds.
I hope I don't take that long.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for coming out this evening. The turnout has been really exceeded expectations, so thank you so much. And paying rapt attention, we've certainly had some diverse opinions and thoughts on how we can move our community forward. I think I bring the breadth and skill set to do it best. I've got an economics degree, a master's in business. I've run a business. I've employed people. I've served 10 years on our council. I've also taught at the college level as an adjunct professor in business and economics. I've served our community in many different ways as a volunteer. Over 30 years at the New London Kiwanis Club, I volunteered as a tutor at New London High School and mentor. I bring the whole deal. I ask for your vote on November 5th. It's 1B, Marty Olson, Marty for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Frida.
Can I have Marty's extra time?
No.
Okay, great. Okay, so in closing, hello again. By my count, only 2 department heads in New London are women, right? 3 if you count the school superintendent, who, as mentioned, isn't under the mayor. On the current city council, there's only 1 elected woman councilor. Of course, there are 4 women on the current Board of Ed, and more are running for both bodies this time around. And so change is coming, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm excited to be one of almost a dozen women running for office in this election, and I think that's an exciting shift for New London. I'm inspired and motivated that many of us are stepping into the breach at this critical juncture, pushing back against the falsehood of male expertise. And I'm happy and humbled to be part of what I'm calling See, I get excited and then I have microphone troubles. Excited to be part of what I'm calling New London's Lean In moment. You get it? Lean in. It's also a movement, right? Because you have to move to lean in. And I'm hopeful that many of us will win next week. And we really need to win, right? We need women's work and contributions to be recognized in this community. And so I want to take a couple seconds just to shout out radical, brave, grassroots women's work that's being done by organizations like We Are the Village, Step Up New London, and Hearing Youth Voices, and dozens of other ones. So much of this work done out of love and need, in response to need, and not for a paycheck, right? I urge you to take your time in the voting booth on Tuesday. I have copies of the ballot here. Resist the temptation to give all your votes and all your voice across one line. And cast your vote for a better future for New London. Write in freedom. Thank you.
Thank you.
And fill in the bubble.
Fill in the bubble, too.
Michael, I will give you an extra 3 seconds.
What do I have?
2 minutes and 36 seconds.
Okay. All right. Well, first, I want to just pick up on a couple things before I begin my closing statement. First of all, the Thames River Apartments. I've lived with that, as many of us in the community did, for many years. I was never very proud of the way we provided for the families there, the housing authority, the squalid conditions that those families lived in. One of the proudest things that my administration did was to work with the federal government and the housing authority to provide those families with better living arrangements. So I'm proud of that. And then also being able to acquire the property from the federal government, from the housing authority, was useful to us. Less than $200,000. I think we paid $185,000 for that prime piece of developable property. And we have $2 million from the state to remediate it and get it ready for development. So that will be another piece of property that's on the tax roll, growing our tax base. So, and by the way, I've been working at community center for 8 years now. I want to do it right. I don't want to do it like the Martin Center, where we have a dream. It's a great dream, but it's not sustainable. I want to make sure everything we do is sustainable for our community. So over the last 4 years, we've grown from a shaky ground to a firm foundation. Over the last 4 years, the city's grown in stature and influence. I'm proud of that. Over the last 4 years, property values have grown. The grand list has grown. Investment and development has swelled exponentially. We've achieved a degree of financial stability that permitted a $3.5 million decrease in the tax rate. That is not just because of the reval, ladies and gentlemen. That is hard work that's growing the grand list. That's all the development you see all around town, and a $750 million pipeline of development that's coming. We're taking advantage of this drive to live in our nice, small, compact, urban community. We're working on great things like a microtransit system to help people get around in this community. We're building bike lanes. We continue to replace our sidewalks throughout this city, and we're working on our roads and all of our infrastructure. The days of outside forces imposing their will upon our city is over. We are going to get the revenue we deserve from the state pier. We've made important structural changes in our approach to quality of life initiatives. What's that, 10 seconds? Or 10 minutes? Plus three. So anyway, our success is largely due to the team I assembled. I want to keep them together. I want you to let me continue to work for you. We've made success for 4 years, and I want to continue that. Thank you. I'm getting the hook.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. I want to thank Neighborhood Alliance of New London for bringing us all together once again for another lively debate. A lot of work goes into these, and I hope everybody got something out of it. And thanks to the candidates, and for goodness sake, everybody get out to vote. We need a big turnout for a change. Thank you all.